Skill Builder 24, I even have a real fancy official Fly Fish Food shirt on, so this is going to be good. Let me read them to you. We're going to show how to select a hair stacker. Very important, especially if you want to stack hair. Tight ice dub loops with and without a tool. And finally, the baby fat minnow head or any resin head for a bait fish.
That's a big brown.
Okay, people. How many hair stackers does a person need? This many. Okay, and this is only like a few of them from my desk. Anyway, you know that I like to play with deer hair quite a bit. You know what, Brigham? These are exactly the same. But we're going to let them roll. We're going to let them roll. There's a place for both of them. Anyway, you can see that I have hair stackers of a bunch of different sizes. So what I want you to look at first of all is the diameter of the top of the hole. Okay, not the outer diameter, but the inner diameter of the hole. When you're selecting a hair stacker, you need something that will allow the clump of hair that you put in expand a little bit. So that's why I have them set up here like this. But we're going to talk about that first. The diameter of a hair stacker is really, really important. Okay, so you can see all the different diameters from really small. This one actually has 2 tubes to it. Kind of cool. Of course, it's the CNF one. So you have a thick diameter and then a thinner one, all in one. So anyway, you can see the diameters. I'm going to lay them down on their sides now so that you can see the length, the overall length. Hopefully they won't all roll away. Okay, I'm going to put this hex one on the side. So that's one of the features of these peaks. So here you have it. You know, most hair stackers are roughly about like this size, okay? That's fine. That's for most your elk hair caddis. That's for your, you know, small dry fly work. This is more when you're getting into the streamer world. You know, you might be using bucktail, and these are compatible with bucktail as well. And you see that these have much bigger diameters. So I might be putting in a clump of deer hair, you know, that's half this diameter. When I put it in and stack it, it's going to open up. Excuse me, sorry there, sir. But it's going to open up, and it's going to allow all the deer hair to get stacked really nicely. Okay? So, big streamers, bucktail stuff, you know, elk hair caddis stuff for these normal ones. Mostly your like hair wing stuff, royal wolves. And then you get down into the little ones. Oh, this little peak over here belongs with that. And this is for comparadons and really fine hair work. So you're looking at like little tiny calf body hair for little parachutes on a Parachute Adams or something. Having a smaller packer sometimes helps you, okay? So size of diameter is important. You also notice that these are all pretty plain, all right? There's no paint on them, none of that kind of stuff. And by having just the plain brushed aluminum, which is my favorite, this is one from Peak. This is one that my buddy Keegan made me, the rock bottom stacker. It's just plain aluminum, and that reduces the amount of static electricity they build up as well. So the hair won't stick to the sides of these as much. Brass works really well too. So the finish is important. I like the Peak version because they won't roll off the table. You put them on their side and they're just going to stay just like that. And then also the opening on this is pretty unique. So this is your standard hair stacker with the opening on the bottom where you're going to pull this tube out. It sits down in here, right? And this is what you grab to pull your hair out. The Peak kind of just has a cap at the end, okay? So the cap is what slides off, and then, you know, it's a little bit easier to get to your hair. So 2 different styles. They all work really well. Again, I like the Peak ones a lot because they don't have any static electricity. But the others work really, really well. I think that as long as they're not finished like this, they're good. The final thing to consider is the amount of weight. So if you take your hair stacker and hit the table, it should make a nice thud. So the more weight that's in these, the better, in my opinion. So, you know, here you have brass. That's going to be pretty heavy, you know. Here you've got a big old chunk of aluminum. That's nice and heavy. But on these, like on this one, This is like machined aluminum, but it's got a tungsten weight built in the bottom, and it has a little rubber stopper. So that's something you'll see is, you know, a little rubber thing on the bottom of it, so it's not as noisy. As you can see, Peak doesn't care about the neighbors or their, well, sometimes they say we care about your neighbors if you're building streamers, but ex-caddis, no way. Yeah, so that's what they're going to hear. Sorry about the audio there. Anyway, weight's important. So what I tell people when they're first starting out is a hair stacker is probably not one that you need to get right away, because you know, you hear it all the time. People don't want to tie dries till they get a little bit better. Anyway, that is a proper rundown of hair stackers, how I use them, how I choose them. Did I miss anything, Brig? If you understood it, you guys better be able to. We are going to talk about either your favorite or least favorite material, ice dub, and how to make a good dubbing noodle out of it. There are a few different ways. I'm going to show you the way with a tool and the way that you can do it with your bare little hands. So let's just get started. Here I have some ice dub. I think this is like shrimp pink or something. We wanted something that would show up. And you can always watch the small screen if you want to see the little detail. We want to leave this one big so you can see what I'm doing with my hands. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some ice dub. Let's say I'm going to use way too much, and I'm going to do the best that I can, and I'm going to create like a dubbing noodle that looks like that. Okay, that's way too thick for most small trout flies. It's not really bound to the thread very well. It's going to pile up when you wrap it, and it might fall off the fly very quickly after you start using it. So this is what we're going to do. I'm just going to push that dubbing noodle up to the hook, and I'm going to make a quick dubbing loop. You can use any dubbing loop twister that you have, what you like. Just stick it in here. I even made it worse. Check that out. And I'm just going to twist that up now. And like magic, it wraps up a really tight corded dubbing loop. Okay? If you wanted that even finer, you can run some scissors along here and trim off any of these hangers. Okay? You can wrap it first and then trim it, but you can get it so fine that it's just barely a little bit thicker than the thread. I'll just wrap that forward. So there you can see, when you do it that way, it wraps a really, really nice, tight, fine dubbing loop. Okay, so that's the cheater way. It's actually a super durable way. I'd highly recommend you getting familiar with that because it's almost too easy to ignore. All right, so this is the one that maybe requires a little bit more skill and practice. And this is just a standard dubbing noodle. We'll cover up some of this, and I'll just build it right here. Okay, so what you do, like a lot of people will grab a big old clump of dubbing like this and just start mashing it on the thread. Okay, so my list of no-nos, number one, is when you put dubbing on, only go one direction with it. If you go back and forth like this, it kind of puts it on and then takes it back off. So only go one direction. Okay, now kind of the easiest way to do this is you're going to take a clump of dubbing and then maybe get half of that little tiny clump. That's still quite a bit, but the way that I do it is I'll put my bobbin hand like this. Okay, so I'll rest it right here, and I'm going to put that dubbing on my left index finger. I'm a right-handed tire, just like this. Okay, and I'm going to tease up some off my finger, and I'm just going to start twisting that in there. See how I'm just doing one direction? I'm pulling my finger like this. Okay, I'm going to move down a little bit more, and I'm going to do it some more. Okay, now I'm to this point, and that's maybe too much dubbing just to mash down in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that noodle up and pull this dubbing down and start kind of pre-forming where I want that on the thread. Okay, then I'll start winding down the rest of it all the way down. So you can see how much of a dubbing noodle I got by doing that. But you can't just mash in a bunch of dubbing in one spot. That's what I wanted to show you most of all. It's using your finger like this, pulling the dubbing noodle up or pulling it down, but the finger kind of braces where that dubbing noodle is. And then when you have a good amount of dubbing throughout the whole length of the noodle, you just mash it on the thread. Okay, now problem number two. See how we built that? We have this much open thread. No big deal. Ice Dub plays pretty well with this. Some of the finer dubbings don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my fingers, 3 to 4 fingers, however many you need, grab that dubbing noodle and just slide it up to the hook. Okay? If you slide it up too far, see what happens? It clumps up, not a problem. I'm just going to pull that back a little bit. I'm going to come in here using the same direction I did before and just kind of work down, and then you can get your dubbing loop right up to the hook. So anyway, use less dubbing. If you can do this with Ice Dub, you can really do it with any dubbing. This applies to a lot of different dubbings, but we get a lot of questions regarding Ice Dub. So let me just wrap that on here. So as you can see, if I wrap that forward, kind of the same shape profile, just that first one's going to be a little more durable. But anyway, that's how I like to make dubbing loops or dubbing noodles out of Ice Dub. And this seems to be one of the materials that's the most frustrating to use. So hopefully this helps you clean up your Ice Dub flies. We are going to show you the baby fat minnow head. We break it down a little bit. And just know that you can do this with almost any other fly. So, I mean, these principles are translatable across the board. The baby fat minnow is designed to be a minnow with a solid resin head. Okay, so we're not just sticking the eyes on the outside of something. We're making a base to put the baby or the eyes on. So we need to make a solid base to put the eyes on. We need to find a way to get them to stick to the hook, and then also we need to find the best way to encapsulate that with resin. So let's just move forward from here. What I'm going to do is at this point I'm going to put some bruiser blend on. The most common mistake I see with baby fat minnows is people are using way too much bruiser blend. So you can see how much I have here, just a little bit of a clump, and I'm going to align it by preening it back and forth through my fingers and rolling it in my fingers a little bit. This is gray. I think this is holographic gray. So that's going to be the top color. And then I'll prepare another color to put on the bottom. But the other thing is, when I tie this in, I'm not going to trim the fibers. As you can see, that's a pretty nice little minnow shape. Let me put it down here so you can see it. So that's nice taper built into both sides. But I want this side to be a little bit longer. I'm going to fold that over the fly. So what I'm going to do is, with my thread all the way at the eye of the hook, I'm going to put just a few tight turns, just like that. Okay? So there we have it. We have a weird looking minnow at this point. And we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to use the cream color. You can use cream or white, whatever you like. You can even use some of the yellows. They make little cool yellow belly. Looks like a little gill plate. But anyway, we'll just use cream. Do the same program. Kind of preen it. And if you pull any of the, oh man, I'm all thumbs here. If you pull any fibers out, just put it back on top of the stack like this. If you pull some out, we're just going to say there's the white, and we'll use that again later. All right, so same thing, turn your vise upside down, and we're just going to tie that in, and make sure that your thread goes all the way to the edge of the hook eye. Okay, so we're ready to fold those back, and I'm not just going to take that and fold it back like this. I like to fan it out. Okay, so from the top view, you can see that that's nice and fanned out. We'll do it to the bottom as well. And the reason I do that is because when I fold it over, it will cover up more of the sides of the fly. And we can actually cover up the sides by wiggling the dubbing anyway, but we'll show you how to do that as well if we need to. I'm just going to take my thumb and push that top one over. The top one first. Get my thread out of the way, just bring it straight up like that. And I'm going to do just one wrap, and then I'm going to hold it up, grab the other one with these two fingers, and just pull that back and do another wrap. All right, so we have a nice compact tie down point of those two sections of bruiser blend dubbing. And by the way, bruiser blend was invented for the baby fat and low fat minnows. So here we've got pretty good, thread bulk, not too much. I'm just going to take that to the hook eye, and I'm going to whip finish. Oh, my thread decided to almost break on me. We'll salvage it. That's actually a good exercise because as you can see, it kind of made some frayed let's see, I'll put this up here so you can see if we look really closely, I'll put it on the macro, there are a little bit of fibers going out the front of this fly, okay? And also maybe that's too far forward, too close to the hook eye, so I can just grab my fingers and grab that whole thing and push it back if I need to, okay? So it's back just a little bit. I'm gonna adjust that in the vise again. And it does not look very good. That, like, the baby fat minnow always looks terrible until it's all the way done. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just going to grab this dubbing, right? See the top dubbing, there's a hole here, there's a hole here. So I'm going to grab the top dubbing, kind of fan it out and wiggle it with my fingers, and then I'm going to grab the bottom dubbing with my fingers again and fan it out. And if I wiggle it with my fingers back and forth, it will cover up the sides of the fly. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a brush and just brush the dubbing out. You're making it all pretty nice, because when we start putting glues on this, it's not going to move anymore up there. All right, so we were talking about those little stragglers at the head, as you can see in the little screen, and all I'm going to do is take a lighter, cover up the stuff I don't want to burn, and I'm just going to clean those up. The reason why that's critical on this fly is because when you're building a resin head, all it takes is one little tiny offshoot of dubbing to make your head all misshapen. So if you're Brigham, that's fine, because everybody's used to it. His head's shaped like an Idaho potato. Oh, you're back, Brigham. Good to see you, bud. All right, but I don't like head shaped like that. All right, so the next step is we're going to throw some color down on this. And I think on this one, we're just going to use one color. This is like a, what is this? A sepia. It's like a brownish olivish color. I'm just going to color the top. And then my left hand, I'll say that's the dark color hand. So any of the dark colors I'm going to blend with my left hand. Here I've got an orange Sharpie. And Sharpies are great for this. When I'm blending, you can use either one, Sharpie or the Prismacolor or Chart Pack. But Sharpies work great. So what I'm going to do here, I didn't blend that little orange piece. I want to leave that be, and I'm going to make a little black stripe down the top. You can make these as fancy as you want. And to finish it off, we'll make some little gill lines, okay? You can make these super realistic without a lot of effort. So as you can see, I'm just making a faint little black line to make little gill plate lines. All right. So I think this is maybe the most critical part of building this head, is we still don't have a flat foundation to put the eye on. So I'm going to take some debarbing pliers. You can use whatever you like, and I'm just going to smash down flat and create a surface to tie it in. Your thread may even break at this point, but that's fine. So I created a few more stragglers. I'm gonna singe this again, and now we're ready to glue some eyes on. If you watch the original Baby Fat Minnow, I would use resin to tack the eyes onto the fly. But resin's a really bad option to stick things together. It's more of just, I'm going to encapsulate everything and it's going to be hard. But as far as adhesion, it's not the greatest. So what I've started doing is just gel control super glue. It's super critical that it's gel, otherwise your glue won't stay where you want it. And also, I'm glad it did this, because part of freaking gel super glue is that it clogs. I'm actually not glad it did that, because it's a pain in the butt. But that should tell you how important it is. Even though it's a pain in the butt, you got to use it. If you use normal super glue, it just kind of seeps into the head and ruins everything. Because when you put some gel on, I'm just going to squeeze out a tiny little bit. And you can't even really see it on the fly. Okay, so you need it to just hold the eye on temporarily so that you can put resin around it. All right, so I'm going to use a really tiny eye. And what I'm going to do is, I have really big fat fingers, and I'm going to grab this eye like this. You can see it in my big old fingers, and I'm going to just kind of let that rest on the edge of the hook eye, and then I'm going to push it off the hook eye, and as soon as it kind of seats down in there, that's where it goes. Okay, right as soon as it's off the hook eye. I use that slide method because it makes it so I don't put the eye too far back, and once that touches the super glue, it's pretty on there. You can get it off, but it makes a mess. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Again, we're using that hook eye as like a half pipe. We're ramping up. And now once the other eye's on, I'm going to make sure that those are kind of in the same spot. You can see that, you know, they're both at the same height on the fly. And now we're ready for resin. On the original, I would use loon resin. It's a little tacky. You can totally use it. It's fine, but you need to coat it with something after you're done. I've switched over to just using the one coat of Solarez medium viscosity. So what I'm going to do, make sure you got a bodkin handy, and a rotary vise makes this fly about 20 times easier. I've never even tried to tie it without rotary, and it would be a huge pain in the butt. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this resin, I'm going to make a big old glob right around the middle of the eye. Okay? Then I'm going to take this away, and I'm going to continually rotate this, grab my bodkin, and start shaping the head with the bodkin, pushing resin where I want it to be. Okay? So 1, 2, 3. Let's see if we can do it. Ooh, don't use too much resin right from the get-go. So you can use also thick resin, but the reason why I'm using the medium is it's just thick enough to give me time to manipulate it. I got a giant air bubble in it, that's fine, I just popped it. So what I'm going to do here from the big angle is I'm taking this resin, I'm pushing it off the eye and barely into that dubbing. And what that does is it seals off the back of that head, and it just makes everything super solid. And once you get that started, the resin will just kind of soak in on its own. And that resin is already into the hook eye. I'll show you a real easy way to fix that. It's super easy. So this can be called maybe our first round of resin, because that's not enough. I'm going to keep rotating that, and I'm going to show you a little hack. Let's say we've got a little bit of spare marabou left over. We probably don't need that much. I'm just going to take, let's see, I'm going to take that marabou and I'm going to run it down into the hook eye. And what this marabou will do is it will take out all that resin out of the hook eye, and then I'm going to hurry and cure that. Okay. The next time I put resin on, because I'm going to do another round of resin, it will kind of stay on where the other resin is. And now I just chuck that extra feather. We're just going to come in here. As you can see, the bottom of the head didn't get much resin, so less resin this time. Going to work it around. And same program, we're going to continually rotate that. It also helps if you're not talking while you do this. So I'm going to rotate that again, and we're just going to hit that with the light. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's the baby fat minnow resin head. It's super easy. Did I get more resin down in there? Nope, stayed out this time. So all that resin stayed out of the eye. But anyway, that's how to do it. Just make sure that you're real sparse on your materials. Make sure you're using good glue so that it sticks in place. And let's just get this wet to see how it looks. Show you people how it looks. I may or may not have just poured like a whole bottle of water onto my lap trying to do this, but anyway, there you have it. That's the baby fat minnow. It's a really translucent fly, swims through the water great. I've caught a ton of species on this fly in multiple different places in the world. So there you have it. If you like these skill builders, this baby fat minnow hack and all this stuff, make sure that you like and subscribe. We come out with these every single week. They're free to you. All that's going to happen to you is your flies are going to look way better than your buddies. You're going to have bragging rights. So, you know what? You're welcome for that.